This is Laura Cross of Rebel Seed Films and Entertainment with a podcast from the archives. This Film Insights episode was released in November 2013. Today's guest expert is consultant and author Carole Dean. Carole Dean is president of the nonprofit organization From the Heart Productions. She gives 3 grants a year to filmmakers, works as a fiscal sponsor, and educates filmmakers on raising money. She is also the author of The Art of Film Funding, Alternative Financing Concepts, which explains how to raise money for films, including crowdfunding campaigns and one-on-one asks. She's also the host of a blog talk radio show of the same name. And today, Carole is going to share insights and tips on how to create an exciting and engaging sticky story that's easy for people to remember and share, the #1 investor question that you must answer to finance your film, how to deliver a powerful pitch to motivate people to fund your film, how to use a fiscal sponsor to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on your film, and what you need to know about who's who when delivering your funding pitch. Hi, Carole. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I know that we've got a lot to cover, and so I just want to jump right in, and I'd love to learn about your granting program, if that's for docs or features, and who can apply. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we have 3 grants a year. They close every year at the same time, April 30th, June 30th, and September 30th, and they run around $30,000 in goods and services and in cash. And we have a lot of donors to the grant, people that people would recognize, like Duard in New York and Edgewise, New York, and Los Angeles. We just went back out on the street to the people in our industry, and they've come through with some very generous donations for each of the film grants. So we do this every year. It's almost 22 years now we've been doing it.
Wow, it's very generous. What a wonderful resource. So what type of films are you actually looking for?
We want films that are unique and make a contribution to society. And we've found that documentaries are really the ones that keep applying. We've opened it up 4 or 5 years ago to shorts and features, and we are starting to get some submissions, but not enough. I'd love to see more features apply. The only restriction we really have is that we do not take films with budgets of $500,000 and more. So we're looking for the lower budget films that we can do some benefit with $30,000.
Okay, so ultra low budget, and you people making features out there, this is for you. They're looking for more features.
That's right.
Who are some of the past winners?
Oh, well, we recently we had A Girl and a Gun. She's been working on that film for 5 years, and it had a theatrical release and is now going international. It's a brilliant film. We have Roaming Wild. It's a story of Dayton Hyde, who found all these horses sitting in pens across America, and he went to the government and got some land, rescued the horses, and now he has like 30,000 horses roaming wild on his acreage, and that is such a heartfelt story. We love that. We do a lot of socially important films. And Barbara Trent is one of our great judges. She helps us with our film grant. And, of course, she made Panama Deception, won the Academy Award for it. She's a lot of fun and a brilliant woman. So we have been working with filmmakers now for 22 years, and the idea is that anyone who applies for our film grant gets a free consultation, because we really feel it's important that, if you don't win, what can you do to improve your material?
Wow, that's a really wonderful benefit. So in the applications, what are the key issues that you're looking for?
Story. Okay.
That's
it. And I don't care what kind of camera you're shooting on or how you're going to edit it, or all those exciting things are not important to me as much as what's the story, Richie.
All right.
Just tell us a good story, and that takes you to the top of the pile. That's number one. The second thing is, why are you personally connected to this film? And the third thing is, what is your marketing? Because that's something I just recently have been teaching at the New York Film Academy, is marketing and distribution. I love this, all these new ways that we have now. We have theatrical on demand, where you can work with, there's two major companies out there now. Gather is one of them. Scott Glosserman runs that, and I spoke to him on the Blog Talk radio show, and you can set up an agreement with him to screen your film all over the country in places you probably would never get into without his help. He finds the theaters who are willing to let you have it one night during the week. He knows where the break-even is. You know when you can green light the theater. In other words, you can say to all of your people in your mailing list, let's do it. We are at reservations where we can break even. Now we can make money. And then you get your friends to promote it in that city. And Scott started this because he found that he's a filmmaker, and he was so excited when he made his first film and he got his distribution set up, only to realize that the theaters they put his film in did no traffic at all because they were not in the area that they needed to be for the audience. So by theatrical on demand, Laura, you can pick your area. You pick the theater that's in the area that you want to reach.
Exactly. So that's like Tug.
Yes, same as Tug.
Yeah.
And it's the coming thing. Maury Warshawski and a lot of people are saying, really, when you look at the bottom line, it may not be to your advantage to fight and get your theatrical distribution for low budget films, because you've got 11 areas of distribution now with all the VOD distribution, theatrical on demand, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you make more money when you put your efforts into building your own database of customers and audience, they call it, instead of customers, but it's the same thing. It's the same people who will donate to your film or invest and be there to download and buy the DVD. Those are the people you want behind you.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a wonderful advice. Do you have any more tips for filmmakers who apply to your grant or to any grant?
Well, yes, it's distribution. I want you to tell me that you know what's going on, that you have you know what your keywords are for your audience, and you can give me 3 or 4 of those, that you have been building a database, that your database or your audience is now up to 3,000, 10,000, some impressive number to let me know that you know who your audience is and you're directly making the film for that. Because this is the biggest thing distributors complain about, is that people walk in with a completed film and they say, oh, this film is definitely for discovery. The distributor starts to watch the film and says, but you can't put this in a discovery film. Look, this has to come out. And when that comes out, you've lost a major thread on your film, so forget discovery. They'll never take this. Or you're not going to get this on the channel you want because of the content. So I think it's really important that filmmakers have investigated where their distribution channels lie, what are the best places for their film on television, as well as the VOD, theatrical on demand, etc. And they tell us when they're applying for the grant. That really, in today's market, that will put you much higher on the pile than those who say film festivals. I think that is totally outdated. It's a wonderful thing if you get into Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, Berlin, Toronto. Those are great. But when you start getting into the smaller ones, they're not going to bring you distribution. They might bring you some laurel wreaths, but does that really put money in your pocket?
Yeah. Those are great tips. Yeah, I mean, distribution has just changed so drastically, and the traditional model is really antiquated now. So that's just great advice of making sure that you have that in your application for your grants. And those yearly deadlines you said were April 30th,
June 30th, and September 30th.
And September 30th. Let's make sure we'll have those next to the podcast. So moving into financing really for your film of any type, whether it's through grants or it's through crowdfunding or it's through equity financing, you talk about in your book, The Art of Film Funding, how important the log line is. So why is that so important?
Well, it's a unique way to describe your film in one sentence. And I think that one of the key things to it is irony. You've got to have a log line for many reasons, but it started, I always wondered how on earth it got that name, but it started because Universal, Disney, and a lot of the major studios, they had so many scripts that they had to store them, so they had their readers log the scripts into the vault with a one-line description of the film, so they knew what they owned. And now it's become one of the most important things about a film, because, see, that can be your elevator pitch. You're in a party, it's crowded, it's noisy, but you meet someone who's a potential investor. They say, well, what are you doing, or what are you working on? And you give them the log line, and that's it. They say, oh, I'm interested, or wow, that sounds exciting. Tell me more. You say, not here. Let me have your card. I'll call you. So it's the introduction. The story is that getting that log line has funded a lot of films. One writer put Romeo and Juliet in Central Park and handed it to a producer as he was walking out of a big event. And the guy called him. He put it on a card with his name and phone number, and that became Panic in Needle Park.
Wow.
So it grabs people. But creating your log lines are very, very important. Sometimes people seem to want to put too much in there, and less is better. So I think every word in the log line is important.
So, yeah, log lines are a great tool, and it's very interesting. I never knew the history of the log line, that's how that they had to file all the scripts. So do you have a formula for log line construction?
Well, here's a good way to get started with it. Let me give you some examples, and then we'll break them down. A wealthy businessman falls in love with a hooker he hired for the weekend. That's Pretty Woman. A handicapped mercenary soldier inhabits an alien body to learn their culture and abandons his own body to save the aliens species from the fellow mercenaries. That's Avatar. I mean, that was brilliant to get that whole film down into one sentence. So when you start, the most important thing to think about is who the story is about and what their primary role is in the story. So, for example, in Pretty Woman, the who is that he's a wealthy businessman. That's far more important than his name, how old he is, or anything else. And the most important thing to know about the who in Avatar is that he's a disabled mercenary soldier. He's a man of action who no longer has full use of his body, and that sets up his actions for the rest of the story. And then you want to know what happens. And so a good way to know is that you have a major problem in your stories to be able to answer this question in just a few words. So, and we always know that there's going to be a problem that has to be solved in the film. It's part of the way they're written. But any story that requires a description of a lot of scenes and events to answer a question is not really focused, and that's not what's going to work. So you just need to focus on what happens and make it alive, and use a lot of verbs that are active and visual. Visual is a key to any pitch, to any log line or sticky story that you want to talk about your film with.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much. You make the log line construction sound super easy, and actually it is when you break it down like that. And you just mentioned sticky story, which is a wonderful term that you use, and you also talk about in your book. And you say that this is a key to financing your film. What is the sticky story?
Well, the sticky story, I got this from a book called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath, and they are brilliant. I love this book. They spend a lot of time putting it together, and the whole thing is that filmmakers are carrying so much information, Laura. I bet you they can tell you what their heroine has for breakfast, or if she was in a bar, what drink she would order. They are so close to their film. They carry a lot of data, and in a documentary, the person could be working on it for 7-10 years. So the point is to be able to get all this information down into most important elements, all right, things that work. And here's the reason why. I've seen this happen. There's something called buyer's remorse that often happens with people who are getting ready to invest in a film or donate to a documentary. That is, they may give you a check or make you a promise. More often with the features, they'll make you a promise, and then they get cold feet and back out. And one of the problems is that they listen to you pitch the film. You're all excited. You've got the vision. You're able to impart your vision to them, but they can't repeat it. So easiest way to do it is with a documentary. So this friend of mine was telling me that her husband came home and said, "Oh, I'm so excited. I've just promised to give $1,000 to this girl who's making her documentary film." And the wife said, "Oh, wonderful. What's it all about?" She said, "Oh, he said soldiers coming home with PTSD." And she said, "But there are a lot of films on that. So what's so special?" "Oh, I don't know. You should have been there. You should have heard the pitch. It was fantastic." And she's so engaged. And the wife's saying, "Are you sure? This doesn't interest me. Why should you do that?" So the wife talks him out of it. And this is why you must have a story that the person you're pitching can remember. And that starts with a simple story that has something unexpected to get your attention. Because half of the time when you're talking to people, you have to realize that they're not in their body. They're thinking about where they're going next, what time is lunch, where am I in my daytime planner, what's going on. So you've got to bring them back to the present. And the second thing is that you really need to give them something concrete, like specific people doing specific things or facts, because we love facts, and that we can remember and repeat. Credibility, information that makes people believe the story you're telling, all right? And remember, everything has to be visual. We have to see the film from the pitch. And then you have to put some emotion in there. I always say that if you touch my heart, I reach for my pocketbook. And most of us do. So when you put your emotion, your credibility, your concrete information, something unexpected, together is, I call it a sticky story. It's made to stick.
I love that term that you just said. When you touch my heart, I reach for my pocketbook. So what I have is you need something unexpected, concrete. You need to add credibility, emotion, and always remember that it's visual. So that's
right.
A sticky story.
That's it.
That's it. Do you have a simple sticky story that you can share, or?
No, I'm going to let your people make that up. I just want you, but I will tell you that one of my favorite guys is Maury Warshawski, and Maury says that he can tell you in 30 seconds when you start pitching him if you will even get your film made.
30 seconds. So the sticky story is part of the pitch. What else is important when you're pitching?
Well, I'm really big on posture, how you carry yourself, internal belief system. This is why I work with filmmakers on the intentional filmmaking class. You have to believe in what you're doing, in yourself. You have to have 120% confidence. There is no doubt, and you exude that. You feel that constantly. I mean, so yes, you're out there to raise $1 million, $5 million, but you have to know you can do it. If there is any doubt in you, it will through, and it shows in the pitch, it shows in the way you carry yourself and the way you talk, because you may be hesitating, well, it could be or it might not be, and be vacillating, which you cannot do in front of an investor or a donor. You have to be so concrete in your concept, in your faith, and your belief in yourself and your film that there is no doubt. I teach that it's like getting on a train, and you're the conductor of this train. So you're going down this track. You know your destination because you know the distribution and the marketing is all set in your mind. And so you're talking to people as investors, donors, and you tell them about this beautiful train trip and where you're going. And it's either they want to get on this train and take that ride with you or not. But there's always someone else. So you have to have that much confidence.
Confidence and expectation. Yeah, I agree. Very true.
Yes. And once you start thinking, if I don't get this money from this man, then I won't make the film, then it will show up in the way you carry yourself and your attitude. You have to be so positive that it never enters your mind this person wouldn't be interested. And if they're not, it doesn't matter. You're making the film without them. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have a lot of enthusiasm for the project. You have to know what the market is. All of this is part of your pitch. But the most important part of your pitch is the sticky story so they can go tell their wives, their accountants. The accountants are the no men who they come in, oh, my gosh, I got the greatest film. I want to invest in this film. And the accountant's immediate response is no. And then the investor has to talk him into the film first before
so the story needs to be memorable so they can quickly repeat it.
Yes, exactly. And the investor has to get the high that the filmmaker has. The investor has to know that it's a great film, and he wants to be part of it. And that all comes from the filmmaker's faith, belief, and his basic understanding that this film is totally completed. All they have to do is bring it into this third dimension.
Right. Everything starts in the imagination and has to just be brought into the tangible. Exactly. You also talk about knowing the funder, or you call it knowing who's who when you're doing pitching. Very important.
I don't recommend that you meet someone at a party and pitch them for $50,000 or it's just not a good thing because there is no trust and there's no connection made yet. These people can't got to the point where they could invest $50,000 without ever missing it because they were good business people. And this is the business of film. You have to recognize that immediately and think that this person has to trust me and really has to know who I am and what I'm doing. So I always say if you ask for money, you often get advice. But when you ask for advice, that can lead to money.
Very true, very true. What are some of you talk about filmmakers really need to be prepared to answer questions that come up. Are there common questions that filmmakers should be prepared for from potential investors?
Yes. remember, as being a grantor, I'm the one usually asking filmmakers questions when they call me. They call me because they want to get to know me, which I highly recommend for anyone applying for a grant, that you always find a question not answered on their website, so you can call the funding person and talk to them, so that when they pick up your material, they know who you are. You've made a connection.
Great tip.
So it's really important. I never forget that. And usually, and I say this in my book, send a thank you card. I'm Mary Jane. I spoke to you about my film, The Caretakers, and I intend to apply for your grant. That's the second connection I have with that person. So when I get her proposal, I know who she is. I have a little connection with her, and I may put her on the top of the pile. Well, let's see what's so important about this film. It doesn't mean that she's going to win just because she called, but she has a connection, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm. And then are there any common questions that you find that investors are asking filmmakers?
Yes. The thing that I think is really important, and Tom Malloy and I work together. We teach an intentional filmmaking class for features. And when we do, the first thing we make you do for homework is you have to tell us what your purpose is as a filmmaker, as well as your goals and what you intend to do and how you're going to do it. But the goals are the key, because when you come up with your intention as a filmmaker first, that gives you a one-sentence description of why you are a filmmaker. It's your personal log line, okay? So what happens is that the investor, the potential donor investor, as you're pitching, they're looking at you, and what's going on in their head is this person really going to make this film? Will they finish it? I mean, how much stick-to-itiveness do they have, and what kind of clothes are they wearing, and how much money have they raised, and what kind of car are they driving, and how many films have they made? All that's going through their mind. So they're only getting 10 to 20% of what you're saying. So they're not going to ask you any of those questions. They usually wrap all those questions into one, which is, why are you making this film? To which you answer with your personal log line. I'm making this film because my purpose as a filmmaker is to enlighten and entertain, and this film fits my purpose. It can be that simple. And what you will find is that investor will say, okay, well, now let me ask you something. And now they're engaging with you. Before, they were analyzing and scrutinizing. So you have to get them into the engaging, and that is the key for stepping over that barrier.
That's very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you mentioned that you should have more than one pitch. What are the different pitches that you should have good to go?
Okay, well, first is the log line. That we covered. The second is like a 30-second max, maybe 20-second pitch that gives me maybe a paragraph of the essence of the film. It would be your sticky story, all right? And you give that to me, and I have to absorb it. So don't start pitching and never stop, because that happens to me a lot. People will call me and say, I just wondered if my film fits your grants, and then they start talking forever. Now, as they're talking, I have ideas, but I don't get to ask them because they won't stop. When they do stop, I'm totally out of questions and everything else. So I just say, okay, thanks. It's too much information at one time. This is very important for filmmakers to realize that you guys are the carrier of too much knowledge. The secret is to get it into succinct statements. Only give me so much, and then I can assimilate it and say, wow, and then ask you a question or become engaged, but don't overdo it.
Okay. So I just have one more question around the pitch, and then we'll get into some more of the key elements in film financing. But I'm just wondering, what would be some of the biggest mistakes that you find that filmmakers make in the pitch? I know that you've covered a few already. Is there anything else that is kind of a glaring mistake that they need to avoid?
Well, never answer your telephone while you're in a pitch. The person you're talking to has given you their time. They get 110% of it. You're personally interested in them. And so it's all about the person. And what they want to know, really, is what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. And you must be focused on telling them what's in it for them. That's the key.
Great. So there's other key elements in film financing, and I'd love for you to go over a few of those things with our listeners.
Okay.
So other than the pitch, there's the proposal, and that's usually used for grants, right, and for funding.
Right. Grants would do a proposal, and on my website, under more information in film financing, I have an outline from the book I put on there, the third chapter, that tells you how to write a documentary grant proposal. And it's used in schools and other places, so I recommend that. It's really important that you write visually and stay on the story, because that's what we're looking for. When we're judging grants, we will have a group of judges sitting around a table, and when they're reading, they say, oh, I've got a good story. They can repeat it in 15 seconds, right? Maybe they've read 10 pages, but they can tell us quickly what the essence is. And then as a group, we'll say no or yes, put that on the pile. We'll maybe that'll be in the top 10. So, one time I had a guy who called me who didn't win and said, I don't understand why I didn't win. And I said, well, we funded several films on that issue. He said, oh, no, that's not the issue of the film. You have to go to page 12, and it's in the 5th paragraph. I said, well, I don't think we ever got it, You have to start with the first essence of what the film is about so that we know what you're saying. And we'll read your 12 pages. But you can't do that. Don't bury the lead.
Yeah. So that's great. Listeners can go there and look at the outline for a proposal on your site. You also recommend for documentaries that they need a funding trailer.
Absolutely. And that is a key issue. Because we just had a woman get into the finals because her trailer was so good. What happened was the judge had read the proposal and said, I don't know about this. So we all said, no, let's see the trailer because we like the story with the content. And darn if the trailer wasn't 10 times better than the written material. The trailer got her into the top 5. Wow. And remember, if you go back to Touch My Heart and I Open My Pocketbook, your trailer can bring you a lot of money and investment, and always in that trailer with either the name of your fiscal sponsor or who to contact for investments. That's why you're making it.
Yeah, I have that call to action there.
Call to action, absolutely.
Yeah. And then for feature film financing, and this is something I do a lot of, one of the key elements, of course, is a business plan and the personal placement memorandum.
Absolutely. And I really honor you for working in this area because what is so important, I believe, is that we're in the film world. This is a business of film. And I see so many proposals that do not have anything artistic. They're just black and white. And I think we need more visuals and more artistic, more of an artistic look.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that kind of covers everything that goes into the key elements, right? Of your financing package, and of course, you also talk about in your book, The Art of Film Funding, that filmmakers really need to be reading sales books to help them with financing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a key issue. I mean, I know filmmakers have to do a lot. They have to be a paralegal. They have to be a writer, editor, producer, etc. But don't forget, without the money, you can't do any of those other jobs. So you've got to know how to make an ask and how to close. A lot of people in our industry will tell you how to pitch, etc. But can they close someone? I don't know. And not unless they've raised something like $20 million, which Tom Malloy has, and that's why he and I are teaching this intentional filmmaking class together. You have to have the ability to close people. And the tactic that Tom says, and I believe is true, is A, B, C. Don't forget that. Always be closing. And how do you close a person? That's the key. Get some good books on that. What does it take to close someone? I will tell you that once you get to know people and once you start working with them, let's say that you have found someone who has the money and really wants to be in the film industry but is afraid to take that leap, and you keep talking to them about the potential for your film, the excitement of being on the set and all those wonderful things, and you ask them to read your materials and give you feedback on how you might be able to improve it. You're getting close to them, and then when they are ready to make that leap, it's always closing. In other words, every time you see someone, you say, when can we go to the next level? I mean, when would you be interested in doing this or that, whatever the next level would be, sitting with your attorney or talking to your wife or whatever you think you have to do to keep moving this forward.
Mm-hmm. Understanding the enrolling conversation or understanding the sales conversation is really one of the greatest assets that you can have in life for anyone, I think. And I remember one of my mentors on sales saying, always being persistent, not annoying, but never ever giving up, and saying that it's never a no until they call security.
I love it. Well, just to tell you how truthful that is, there was someone in our film industry who's highly recognized and very busy, and I had asked him for a major donation on the film grant. I didn't hear back, so I sent him like 3 follow-ups, 2 phone calls, and then I said to heck with it. So fast forward a year, I'm interviewing this person for the book, and at the close of the interview, he says, Carole, there's something on my to-do list to talk to you about your film grant. You want me to make a donation. Yes. Well, of course I will. I thought, oh, see, Carole, you gave up too soon.
I think that's one of the things that filmmakers do in sabotaging themselves is they simply give up too easily or too soon.
Well, Laura, I would say that to make your motto, go until no.
Until now, that's great. Go until no. And then you go past that. So you also work as a fiscal sponsor for filmmakers. What exactly are the benefits of a fiscal sponsor?
Well, there are many. First of all, you get personal consultations with me on an ongoing basis. I like to take all of your material, review it, give you guidelines. We set up a program of how you should basically spend your time.
Let's go back and just clarify for anyone who maybe is not aware of what a fiscal sponsor is, what that is.
Oh, I skipped right over. Sorry.
No problem.
It's a nonprofit where people can give you money through a nonprofit, and the donor gets a tax write-off. And this can be very important for beginning filmmakers who are making a feature, and you need to get the money together to create your PPM and your business plan. A lot of people start out with a nonprofit, and they raise money that way, and then they move to an investment. Now, this is tricky, and the key issue is if the fiscal sponsor's contract allows it, you're okay, and ours does. So when you get with a fiscal sponsor, you have so many benefits for shooting because you're given a copy of our nonprofit certificate from the IRS. And my filmmakers are waving those around all over town every time they go for any kind of a bid on equipment or lighting or anything, and they get discounts that way. They also use it for locations and permits. I mean, one woman saved over $1,000 on a permit and $50 off every location. So there are many benefits to it. People like to know that your film has been reviewed by someone and that somebody else is watching the store. And it's a lot easier to write a check to a nonprofit than to you personally.
Great. And so you can use these for features as well, correct?
Yes. We've supported a lot of features with this. The documentary world's been doing this for many years, and the features are really are doing it now because they're of the low budgets that are out there. And it is very beneficial because, first of all, you get the consultations, you get guidance on strategy, you get help with your pitch, with your paperwork. I mean, reviewing your paperwork and giving you feedback is very valuable in our industry. So, and then you just save money, and a lot of the people that donate to our grants are very interested in helping emerging filmmakers and independent filmmakers. They're very soft-hearted in that area. So when you go into the people that we have as donors and talk to them about a good price on your sound or editing or whatever, you're more apt to get a generous discount than anything else.
Right. And your nonprofit, From the Heart Productions, I know that you're a partner with Indiegogo, and you have raised over $700,000, which is so impressive. Do you have any tips for filmmakers around crowdfunding and with Indiegogo?
Yes. First of all, it's really important to know that there are partners like From the Heart, and the benefits of working through a partner are many. First of all, you do not have to pay a penalty if you don't hit your goal. You come in with us with a flat fee. You get paid twice a month. You know what it's going to cost you, and we work with you with tips and support to help you create your database, because it all goes back to how many names you have in your email box, not your Facebook. But we're back where we started with your audience. So I'm really big on building your audience for crowdfunding as well as for distribution. And we do a lot of work with filmmakers to get them from A to Z. I mean, they'll come to us with maybe 300 names and they want to launch a campaign, and after we work with them, we can get their numbers up to a really sizable amount so that they can double or triple what they would have made.
Yeah, that's very important. And how far in advance before their campaign should they be coming to you for that?
Well, see, I like it about 2 or 3 months so that we have plenty of time to discuss what is needed and help you bring people on board to work with you, because there's something, it's like 400% more income can be made on a campaign if you have 4 people on your crew. Mm-hmm. That's really where you're starting to make good money. But you need lead time. You have to get everything ready. You have to build your database and get a lot of things done to be ready. We really support the idea that you do a soft launch and you get at least 30%, 25 to 30% of your goal in the first 3 days. So you only launch to those people who know and love and support you, and you're definite. Let's say that you set your goal at 20,000. So you can raise about 7,000 to 8,000 in 2 to 3 days through your support group.
So you need
launch
to know
them.
that. You need to
Oh,
know
yeah,
that
and then you launch to the rest of the world and send it to your entire list, because now they're saying, oh, my gosh, this has legs. Look at
this.
this.
It's got some momentum. We see people are invested in it. Yeah, those are great tips. Carole, you've mentioned a couple of times this term intentional filmmaking. What is intentional filmmaking?
Well, it's really using your mind to create your future. And I know that can sound really hokey to some people, but actually the people in my class, we study Amit Goswami, Lynn McTaggart, and physicists, and we read and figure out what all that means and how we can use it in our daily life and how to help us fund our film through some of these new concepts about the quantum field and quantum physics.
So how can you use your mind to fund your film?
Well, first we have to educate you on what the possibilities are. And so that takes time. I like to do a 6-month class, and then we work in parallel between your homework for the mind and your homework for moving your film forward. But once you realize that you can work with the universe and how you can work with the universe, because you're doing it on a daily basis. You are manifesting every day, whether you know it or not.
Oh, yeah, we're creating results all the time. And if you're not intentional about it, you just get whatever sometimes.
There you go. So we do our intentions first, and we do an action list, because asking is important, but intending is key, and then what's the action list? And so we work those out together with you, and everybody's is separate and private. You don't share this with anyone else, because it's like an energy inside you. You are birthing a film. It's its own entity, and you need a lot of power to do that.
So what are you teaching in this class?
Well, we teach you. We have about a 10-page distribution marketing outline that we help you create to show the 11 windows of distribution and how you will use each one, what they could bring in financially. We teach you how to pitch, how to overcome objections on donations and investments, all the things that, that's just part of the class, the standard ways you need to raise money for a film. But the true success of the class is based on your faith and your belief in your ability to do it, which you get from the teachings. We do a lot of CD listening, and then we analyze what we learned about what is the quantum field and how it works, and how do you collapse the wave and create your future.
It's so important. Anyone can. The strategy is not that hard, right? It's if you don't have the mindset and the right expectations, and like you said, the faith and all of that in intentionally creating what you want behind it, the strategy probably won't work. I mean, you can give the strategy to everyone, and it doesn't work for everyone unless they have the mindset behind it and that inner mastery.
This is so true. Mastery is a key word. It's mastery and practice. It creates mastery. So we practice the pitch until we're blue in the face, but we become perfect with it. But the other thing is that you have to start from ground zero and learn how the physicists, what they're saying these days. They say if you're not astonished with what you learn about quantum physics, then you're not a human being, because even the most intelligent physicists are surprised at what they find. And they are all moving into one area of belief, and that's the area we study, that which allows you to create your future. And the tactics that you use to get there. But I like to use the science as our support system.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got me intrigued about the class for sure. So when are you starting the next class?
February of 2014.
All right. And we're going to have the link for those people who know that this is going to be a good fit for them. We'll have the link below the podcast to learn more about this intentional filmmaking class. And this is with Tom Malloy, correct?
The feature class is with Tom, and the documentary is with me alone.
Okay, great. All right. Also, you work with filmmakers one-on-one. You give consultations, right? How do you work with them?
Well, I have them send me everything they have on their film, and I review it. And then we have a 40-minute consultation, and I will go over everything and give them my feedback, and they get to practice their pitch or whatever it is that's the most important. Usually what I can help them do is take their paperwork up a couple of 100%, because I read thousands of proposals and outlines for films during the year for the 3 grants, as well as to approve people for the fiscal sponsorship. So I know what to look for, and if it's not there, I'll tell you.
That's a wonderful service. So we also have that link on how to connect with Carole if you're looking for a consultation. And I know you also have a Blog Talk Radio show, which I have listened to. You always have such wonderful guests on there, and that's around the art of film funding. So tell us a bit about that show.
Well, Laura, I started it because, when you write a book, that's a year of your life, and then to get it published is another year. And so the book came out, everybody loved it, and I'm thinking, no, there's some things that aren't in there. So the only way to keep it current, I felt, was to do the show. And so you will find many of the people who are in the book are on my Blog Talk show. It's Bill Woolery talking about cutting a trailer and what's working and what's not on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And then Peter Broderick on the latest on distribution. The show is to keep the book current.
Yeah, this is a great resource. And just a reminder to everyone that all of the links for all of these wonderful resources, including Carole's book, The Art of Film Funding, are below the podcast. So be sure to click on there to get information about the intentional filmmaking class, how to work with Carole personally for a consultation, her Blog Talk Radio show, and her book, and just how to connect with her. So, Carole, I want to thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest today and sharing so many great insights. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Laura. And I'm so glad that you're with us in our industry and creating those business plans.